Welcome everyone to the Joy of NFTs, episode 4. Today we have a really cool episode focused on photography NFTs. And for those who haven't seen the show before, what we do and what we hope to do is to provide a platform for many different types of artists within the NFT space, open up the conversation between artists, collectors, and just community members of the NFT space, as well as just have a little bit of an inspiration from Bob Ross's Joy of Painting, where he created a live painting on his show. So on this show, we'll have something similar where the artist will be creating something live based on a theme proposed by the community. So you'll get a little glimpse of the creative process of the artist. So today we have Chat Turkelson. He's a photographer, adventurer, and then we also have Jacob LR. He's also a landscape photographer. And then we also have Eric from Defiance Work. He's a collector and very active within the NFT space. So thank you everyone for joining. I'm super excited to have you guys.
Nice to be here. Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
And I want to have, a little space for each of you to talk about who you are, people that don't know you, that are seeing you for the first time. Tell just a little snapshot of you, what you do, and, what's going on in your life.
So I could lead. So Eric, also Defiance Works on Twitter. So I'm a lifelong collector, very passionate about many things, including art and photography, and I just love the fact, I'm also a blockchain technologist. So I've sort of saw NFT come around and saw what it does to enable, native digital forms of art, such as photography, which can be very natively digital, to monetize effectively, whereas it's never been possible before. So, I love NFTs are huge to me, but overall I'm a big art collector. I'm also the CEO and founder of a company called New Street, NEUSTREET. So we do media and data technology around the space as well.
Very cool. We'll go with Chat.
All right. My name is Chad. I am a photographer. I have been born and raised in the Pacific Northwest and had kind of got hooked on travel pretty early on, and then kind of began just getting obsessed with trying to capture the feelings and the excitement that gave me and share that with other people and kind of bring that across in what I create. And so I've gotten into photography almost a decade ago, and then have continued to get more and more into that creation and diving into what it means to be sharing something that you're passionate about and what story you're telling. And so I've gotten to NFTs in this spring, have a collection out that's called Green World, and then I'm actually releasing a new series on Foundation right now, called Made in Oregon, that kind of goes about my story from being born and raised in Portland and fallen in love with the state of Oregon.
Very cool. Thanks, Chat.
Awesome. Hi, I am Jacob LR. I am a landscape photographer based out of the Bay Area. NFTs are kind of all I do now. I got the opportunity to quit my job, live in the back of my car, and just travel and really take photography seriously for the first time in my life. I grew up doing art as just a kind of a hobby. I came from making videos and just being on the internet and playing video games as a kid. And, that kind of traveled on and on with different weird jobs until I got to really make art for myself. And the second I wake up to the second I go to sleep, I just look at photography and be on Twitter and try to flip JPEGs to film my film addiction, because I got stuck into shooting cameras from the 80s. So yeah, super excited to be here. And thanks again for having us.
Yeah, no, thank you. And this happened because we actually met at a Cool Cats meetup in Miami, and we just started talking about your passion and what you do. So this happened very organically, and I was so glad that we ended up hanging out afterwards. And then I started learning more about both of you, and how extensive of a career you both have. And I wanted to ask, Jacob, I'll start with you. You've done, like you said, different types of jobs. You've done wedding, photography, real estate, commercial video. How, and this is a question that both of you can answer, but how do you go about finding your identity as a photographer?
Wow, that is the best question to ask. Like, who are you, and like, why do you make art, and why should people care? At least for me, it's a long road. It's like you're battling back and forth to find like a topic or direction that feels meaningful. There's a lot of pretty pictures out there, and hell, your phone could take a beautiful picture of a sunset. But attaching yourself with a lens and more perspective, everything you shoot is kind of condensed into a story or theme, and then you get to add colors and tones and really make it your own. So it's kind of like the holy grail question. It's like, what makes your own style? And I think trying a lot of things goes into that, and understanding like what you love that's not photography, and like combining that. So like combining art in your real life, like you can't get burned out if you just chase what you're interested in. So it's definitely a hard question, but a culmination of those things and just not giving up, and you kind of find a style over time.
Chat, and you also focus a lot on nature, but I'm sure that you started doing many different types of photography. So the same question goes for you.
Yeah. So for me, I actually have NFTs are the first time I've actually had the opportunity to move into more of a full-time photography. So photography was always something that I just did, that I shot what I loved. It was never, I was never drawn into like working and doing like commercial work and more like of the chasing gigs sort of style of photography. That was just never appealing to me since I had a different remote job already. So for me, it was just always a passion. And then when NFTs came around, like I was able to share that, and people related with that work that I've been creating for most of a decade, just for fun. And I really got into landscape photography initially because I had some like tough things happen about almost a decade ago, and like some of the what gave me peace and what like was able to give me kind of direction in my life through those was finding places and finding like going out and into moments where like you're stuck in front of a big massive mountain or just like this quiet forest, and just like you feel tiny, and like you can be stressed about whatever, and like you're just up against this thing that's there no matter what's going on in your life. And because of that, like I don't know, it's like that sort of feeling is something that I've chased for pretty much ever since then. And like to try to capture that and share that feeling through what my expression, like that's been like really all I've been trying to ever do.
Yes.
I live for and want to share that with others.
That is like the best type of therapy. Like turning something like really bad and just finding peace in something that now is your job, but it's for you, it's like what brings you peace. So that's like a very lucky spot to be on, and that's awesome for us, for Eric and me, to just watch your journey and watch your the product that you put out, which has so much of that emotion. And I want to jump to Eric too, because this is the first time that we talk, and I want to know, how did you start collecting?
Apologies, I turned off my camera because my bandwidth here is pretty bad. But I definitely it's a passion for me. So truly, I find things that I love first. So everything that I collect, I love truly and fundamentally, and then even furthermore, I try to get to understand the meaning and the emotion behind the art from the artist. So a lot of the times, like Chad and I had the ability to have a very long conversation at NFT NYC week, and I kind of get to understand the artist behind the art, the meaning behind the art, like the emotion behind the art, and it's just and that's really what sells me on it. So I mean, it's hard to put any sort of specificity around it, because it's almost like an art in and of itself. It's like collecting art.
Yeah.
But I always start
Curating.
with what I love and who I love. And yeah, exactly. It's a passion.
And going back to Jacob, how was the process of like setting up your tech stack or like your camera stack? From a technical standpoint, I think people that are just starting and are in the more like techie, are interested in the more techie side of photography. How do you go about setting up your, um, yeah, your like setup, your camera setup?
Yeah, camera setups. Oh my gosh. It's funny because I've kind of taken a different direction with like my camera gear and what I use. Um, I am like I was just a tech and I enjoyed technology, and like cameras were like really cool way to like utilize that. I used to be like a traditional landscape artist, which we used to just call like tripod uncles. So I would get
Mhm.
there, I would shoot my 3 to 5 exposures. I would watch endless tutorials on YouTube about luminosity blending and like blending exposures. I would just track down weather to like the second. I would, most of my friends wake up at 5 in the morning, and we all text each other when I lived in the Bay Area, and we're like, okay, weather pattern looks like this. We have a crosswind. We know in like an hour the clouds are going to land on this area. So what area in this area with the direction of the sun are we going to line up a shot? And you put all this work in, and you set up your camera, you spend thousands of dollars on camera gear that is probably going to break in some wilderness setting, and you take this like series of images. A lot of people, I don't think, realize like landscape photography is usually a series of images of a scene, and you blend it together in Photoshop, and you tone it up in Lightroom. And yeah, it's at least like the stack of what I'm using. Like the camera is just one tool. But it's funny you say that, because I've kind of abandoned that this year, and I started shooting on 35 mil and 120 film. So I'm like going a little bit older school, getting it scanned through a lab and putting it on my computer and editing those files. But I'm excited to hear what Chad does. Chad is a fantastic editor and has spent hours in front of me editing one photo. So every artist is a little different.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll jump in, and it's kind of funny to hear Jacob's background with all that stuff, because when I started photography, I was like thinking about, okay, well, you need this sort of gear to do it best, and it's like I ended up buying like a Canon 70D. For people who know, it's like crop sensor, pretty cheap, like pretty base level standard camera. Bought probably 3 lenses for that and started carrying that around. And I was, like I said earlier, I was doing a lot of traveling. So I was living out of a backpack for months at a time, and
Mhm.
carrying 3 lenses around in a big bulky camera body wasn't really ideal. So after about a year or two, I actually sold all that stuff and ended up buying like a Sony and a single lens that was like a 24 to 70 or 28 to 70. And it, the weight, it was just that single setup. I was able to backpack with that. And I used that for about 2 years, just that one lens and one camera body.
Mhm.
When Jacob's talking about tripod, like I didn't own a tripod, shot everything handheld, like,
Mhm.
and then, yeah, so it's just like, I love the flexibility of not having much stuff, because I like to backpack, like to be able to be pretty light on my feet. And then also, like,
Mhm.
one of my favorite things in photography is composition. And I feel
Mhm.
like when you're dealing with a tripod and having to set a single spot or take a single shot, you can't prioritize composition the same way, because it's oftentimes just like moving a millimeter when you're holding up a camera to get in the perfect spot where the lines are centered or the line is on a third, or whatever you're trying to do with it. So because of that, I just like to handhold, and you can kind of run around. And Jacob's shot with me before, like when we're going, like I'll just be running for about like 15-20 minutes when it's sunset, just like trying to find as many different spots as I can find and see if there's something that like I can see that's a little bit different. Yeah, so that's, as far as the tech stack goes, it's pretty, I like to keep it pretty minimal. Um,
That sounds pretty cool. And for someone that's not photography savvy, can you explain what you mean by like composition. You were talking about that you like that more, and so can you just expand on that?
Yeah, so composition is just like how you approach an image. I'm going to get some photographer somewhere is going to get mad at me. Whatever definition I give is going to be wrong. But it's all sorts of things. Like when you're taking a photo and there's like multiple layers of things, like multiple distances of things. That's one element where like layering is a technique you can use to like make the shot so it's composed correctly. I think Jacob's smiling because he probably has a better definition than me. But
Jacob, what would you define it?
yeah.
It's like composition could be just whatever you put in front of your frame or front of your camera, and then you take the image. That is your compositional choice. Now there's a bunch of rules. People that are really good break the rules all the time, but Chad is like a mountain goat. He'll just run around at sunset, and I'll be setting up on my tripod, making like 2 millimeter difference things. And he's out there snagging maybe 10 different compositions that he can go choose from, where I've dedicated myself to one scene and I'm working the same scene for like 30 minutes. And that's kind of me trying to get one composition and, following certain rule sets. But that's kind of a hard defining topic.
I might have a better definition. As you talked, I kind of thought of something. Okay, so like you're taking a picture of a mountain. Your composition is what you choose to, like how you frame that photo. Like what, like you can, everybody sees the mountain, but everybody's composition will be slightly different because they'll be in a different place. It's where you choose to be, how you choose to put it together. And
what's between the lines, what you put between the lines of the camera. Okay, I got it.
Like,
Thank you.
Like the personalization to the photo.
Yeah. No, I got it. That was two very good definitions. And I think Eric is back, and I just wanted to throw the question back, but I was asking Eric, you met Chat first before buying his work. But I also wonder if are there times where are you just scrolling through different marketplaces and you decide?
So I don't typically just scroll through marketplaces because that's an endless sea of, beautiful, amazing creation, but it's impossible to do any sort of, filtering on it. So I actually use Twitter very, very much. I see how people interact with other people on Twitter. I kind of get a sense as to whether or not somebody's genuine with their interactions and their discussions in the community. Sometimes they'll even reach out to the artist before I purchase in DM or otherwise. I just like to get a sense for who it is, because I think that who it is behind the art is just as important as the art itself. Personally, that's at least the way I approach it. And that who could be an anonymous person, an anonymous personality, like anybody, but it doesn't really matter fundamentally who, but just the personality that's behind the art is very important to me.
Nice. Yeah. And I know that every collector is different, but it's nice to hear, different perspectives and how you go about selecting the art. So going into more of the NFT conversation, you've been artists or photographers, well, both for years. What did you find most difficult about entering the NFT space?
I'll just I think for people who weren't part of selling art in the traditional art market, one of the most difficult things has been learning to be the full business behind the photo. I love making my art, and I love I can dive and put everything into that and spend hours on that. And unless I understand the processes of how to get that art in front of the right eyes, that won't go anywhere. And so kind of be getting educated in NFTs of how to sell your work, how to sell your stuff yourself in front of people, and how to do that in appropriate ways, as well as build relationships with those people. It's just, I guess the business behind it has been probably the challenge. I'd say most of us are facing a lot.
I think some artists are it's marketing is important. I guess that it's hard to say that, because marketing, it feels hollow, and it feels kind of it kind of feels cheap sometimes and inauthentic. But the fact of the matter is that's the only way to reach people. Truly, truly, truly. And marketing can be anything from promoting through social networks or to attending events. I mean, really, there's a ton of different ways to do it, but it's very important.
Yeah, both of those combined, like the hardest part for a lot of us artists is realizing there's a business behind it. Like I started making art pretty young and I had no idea how to run my own business. I think that's one of the hardest things to do in the world to make a successful business. And the business is yourself. So the mental pressure of that, like coming into the art space, is pretty big for a lot of people, and it's easy to get burned out. But it's the opportunity for someone to like want to like pay to collect your piece of work means so much as an artist, that like whatever it takes to get to that point, whatever it like may be, oh, it's time to step on stage and talk in some Twitter spaces, it's time to go to some events and shake some hands, like the learning curve is like is scary, but it's definitely there. And sometimes it's memed in the space like I'm here just for the art, but the artists are here a lot of time for the art because of it, and that's what brought them here. But like Chad said, and Eric, like it's hard and it takes a little bit of like advertising, but that just might be posting your work every day and being genuine, because this space has a lot of talented people, to be honest. There's just a lot of good art, and like people want to learn that it's going to a good place and going to an artist that it's not going to just disappear the next day. So, if you show up every day and like participate and be kind to others, like that's the building blocks of, being seen in the space, in my opinion.
Yeah, well said. And I think this is a good segue to go into the challenge. We'll continue with more questions while you guys are in the middle of the challenge. So we'll start that now. We're ready for the challenge. So how this work is a little bit different than the other episodes. Typically, we have someone from the community on Twitter propose a theme, and the artist will sketch out a piece. But because this is a photography episode, how it's going to work is that the community propose a theme out of 3 topics. So one could be ocean, the other one was mountain, and then the third one was the desert. And the comment that was selected was commented by graffiti on grave.eth, and she or he commented ocean. So that is what we're going to be focusing on today. We have 2 pictures shot by Chad and Jacob, and they will have 10 minutes to edit the picture. So I'm going to start.
Can I mention really quick just that Jacob will be editing my photo and I'm editing Jacob's photo?
Yes, and both of you will edit each other's photo. So I'm going to start the timer so you guys can start editing in 3, 2, 1, go.
Dang. So I'm taking Chad, and I know Chad shoots on his little Sony, which I'm not used to. He likes to save the highlights. Chad, I love you, but I know this wasn't on a tripod. I just know you as a human being, and that's not a possibility. So I hope I gave you something saucy to work with.
So how long does it usually take you to complete the editing process?
I guess it's different people to people, but in terms of traditional landscape shot, like it's not uncommon for at least 30 minutes to an hour to like sit with it. I edit in a way where like I do a first pass and then I goes into a little incubation chamber, and I have to go look at it for the next like week straight before I put it on, socials, and kind of like have myself represented by that image. And I feel like it needs to sit for a little bit of time. But like in terms of editing, everyone kind of takes their own time. Chad is one of the longest editors per image that I've seen, because I've watched him spend a whole day on like a single image. So I'm curious to see how he's doing.
A lot of that just kind of depends on what you're starting with. Like this one that I'm working with at Jacobs is a pretty like dealing with a really good starting point. So it's like there's not a whole lot. I wouldn't have a lot to do if I was going to try to spend like 3 hours on it. So it should be. I don't know. It all depends.
What are you both using right now? What software?
Lightroom, and I might pop it into Photoshop at some point a little bit, but
yeah, I'm also on Lightroom. Funny enough, my last name is hyphenated, Louis Ruiz, but people just called me Lightroom. So like I have this appreciation for Lightroom now, like no other. You know, Adobe's taken my money since I was like 17, so they can just have it by now. Like I'm stuck on the Adobe system.
Between Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop, what's the fundamental difference between those?
That's a good question.
So
yeah, what do you think, Chad? I'm curious to see what you say.
I mean, Lightroom is more of a catalog editor. So like you do have less you can do, but it's in a more user-friendly way. Like technically, I think you can do everything that we're going to be doing in Photoshop if that's what you're more comfortable with. But then Photoshop, you can do a lot more. So like when I use both, what I'll do is I'll do my basic editing here in Lightroom, and then I'll bump over and do any like if I need to remove something from a photo or just like clean up some different elements of it, I'll put it into Lightroom and do that there.
So would you say Lightroom is better for like the novice, like somebody like myself who I take pictures and I'd want to do minor editing, but a little bit more than I could do with the camera? Will Lightroom fit the bill for that, or would there be something even lighter weight?
Yeah, I'd say Lightroom. There's actually a lighter weight Lightroom CC. So like what we're using right now is Lightroom Classic,
Yeah.
at least what I am. I think Jacob is probably using it as well.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit more like you can do a little bit more with it. But Lightroom CC, it syncs to your phone and your computer. So if you make an edit on one, it will do it on the other as well.
Yeah, I think Lightroom Mobile for a lot of people is going to be a very, very good editing software. I use Lightroom Mobile as like a secondary menu from when I'm pulling exports to my phone to reorganize my work before posting. But most people are going to be on Lightroom Classic, just most photo editing in the world. There's a bunch of different softwares that do like the same thing, but Photoshop has some abilities with like layer manipulation that you just can't get out of like just color editing software. So Photoshop's more for like the heavy lifting and like taking out and like things like using AI to analyze the environment and to like take out like people or trash. And like that's like I think its greatest tool, where Lightroom is more of like color and tuning and toning, and it kind of just the layout is very easy to get used to. So I definitely recommend everyone go to Lightroom, but go to Lightroom Mobile because it's just as good. It's the same program, but it's just a little easier to navigate through. Oh, this is hard to answer questions while going full speed. 10 minutes is not a lot
that's
of time.
That's part of the challenge.
I don't know if I've ever talked this much while I've edited.
Okay, so you both have traveled a lot for a lot of your photography. Which is the must place to visit in your opinion?
From a photography standpoint or in general?
Let's go with photography standpoint.
I'm kind of obsessed with the Alps. Pretty much I've been there probably 4 different trips, and every time it's like I just have to spend more and more time there. So I recommend like it's that region is just between the food and the mountains and the people. It's so good. So that's pretty high up there for me.
What about you, Jacob?
Oh, that is a hard question. I honestly, I'm a dual citizen to Sweden. I want to be in Europe as much as I can. As a kid, I got to travel there, but not as much as an adult. And most of my friends, we kind of just live out of our cars and chase like landscape in the US. And I think I personally, recently moved this year to the Southwest Northwest and the desert. And I've, grown up next to the coast. I love mountains. It's the reason why I got into the outdoors. But the desert is like alien. It's like you landed on like Dune. Like if you've anybody seen the movie that just came out, it's like Tatooine mixed with Dune, mixed with just strange stuff. And I think the desert's really fun. So if you're going to like Utah, Arizona, Grand Canyon area, there's some stuff that doesn't feel like it's in this world, and it's in the US. So I just say pack up your car and pick a national park and you'll have a pretty good time.
Couldn't agree more. I think northern Montana, some of the Glacier National Parks, some of the areas in this country are just ridiculously cool.
Yeah. Do you have to be an outdoorsy person to be a photographer? Like, is that a must? Because I feel like every photographer, or at least the ones that I've seen, are like super, they like to go on hikes and all of that.
I think there's kind of like a wide variety. Like I actually don't really call myself, I mean, in context, I do call myself a landscape photographer, but like if I were to stick it in a niche, I'm probably would call myself more of an adventure photographer, because that's like primarily I go into the outdoors, and then like photography I just do because I'm like I don't know. It's just like I'm more into like backpacking and doing like backcountry snowboarding and stuff like that, and then shooting that sort of thing. And so that's a little bit more, but then there's like, you can be a landscape photographer and only shoot things that you drive up to as well. I'm gonna
it's I think Eric was saying like there's different types of photography. You can be a studio photographer and be the most successful person in the world and never leave your house. But in terms of landscape, you don't have to be outdoorsy, but please know you can't bring your like flip-flops on a hike. Like I'll carry you on my back if I have to, but I've had so many friends that were like, wait, we have to bring water? It's only 5 miles. And it's like, yeah, it's 5 miles there. Like this is gonna take a while.
As a major proponent of the flip-flop hiking crew, I
have also hiked in flip-flops for long periods of time, but that being said, I'm a semi-pro, so
that sounds dangerous.
Qualifications required.
My flip-flops
semi-pro. Yeah.
You guys have 1 minute and 30 seconds left.
Oh my God.
It's fast.
Okay, so I've seen you guys do some pretty fascinating perspectives. What is the craziest thing you've done to get a shot?
Yeah, Chad, tell us a very in-depth story that might take you away a little bit from editing time. And I swear I won't even work on my image. Just give me something juicy.
I can't even think right now. This is
Okay.
I'm like, I bit off a big chunk right here. I need to just.
How about Eric? Eric, help us out.
I don't know. Words.
This is why it's called a challenge.
I decided to pop it into Photoshop since we were talking about it.
Oh, dude, you can't even bring it over in time. You're just gonna have a raw file. I'm sorry, you disqualified.
All right, I'm back. We're good.
Oh, you're back already? Wow, you got a fast.
This is fascinating. I mean, this is exactly the kind of stuff that I find it intriguing. Just understanding the process, the method, like how much work goes into this. Not just to get the shot itself, but to refine it and to make it, to produce it, essentially, like we're doing here. I mean, it's just it is truly a form of art. I mean,
it is. Okay, you guys have
it's amazing.
10 seconds now. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Add a dolphin.
2, 1.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man, it doesn't. I mean, I need like a sound, like a really loud sound for that. But yeah, time's up.
I don't want to stop.
Well, you guys will have some time after this show to, keep refining it as much as possible, as much as you think is needed, and we'll have a reveal later on of the before and after. So
you don't want to show the before and after right now?
I had it on my screen already.
We'll share it. We can see like a snapshot now, but we'll have a actual proper reveal later on. But I also want to finish that question. I want to know, what was the craziest thing you guys did to get a shot?
Do you mind if I quit sharing screen? Is that all right?
Oh yeah. I think we're good.
Okay, craziest thing to get a shot. That, oh my gosh. So in terms of like, being running around and putting effort, NeoWise during mid-COVID was the most I've ever worked for a shot. I lived in an area where I knew the directional comp would be a northeast, which for landscape photography is kind of weird. That's the opposite of Milky Way galaxy. It's not where the sun rises or sets. It's this strange direction where I took like the 2 weeks and scouted all the hills and just went on hikes with buddies, trying to get this shot right. And it just happens that the best place to go is somewhere where the bottom of the hill closes for vehicles in like a certain time of day. So that means if I want to shoot sunset, I'm going to ride my bike like 7-8 miles up a mountain with all my photo gear to get that shot. And NeoWise was coming to its peak at like middle tail end of the first year of COVID, and it was like I haven't had something to like kind of drive towards. There was no like goal set. It was a lot of editing from the archives. So I made this like my life mission to get a cool shot of NeoWise. And I, after scouting for like 1 to 2 weeks, I hit the spots. I was like, oh, that would be cool to align a tree, align something. It was like, no, we're going to Mount Tam, the local spot to get fog in the Bay Area. And we're going to shoot this till we get fog. And we're going to get kicked out or get a ticket from our car, like whatever it takes, we're getting this shot. And after day of riding my bike up, just dying, like it's so hard to ride a road bike with a backpack full of gear. I thought this would be a good idea. And on the last day, fog like swept in behind me. I had everyone getting kicked out of the park. I like ran to hide my bike, climbed on a hill, and just like hoped. I was like, you know what? Arrest me right now. I don't care. Like this is my dream shot. Fog is like a triple layer of fog is coming into the valley below me. And I was like, if I get fogged out right now, I'm going to cry. But it just all worked out. At the end of the week, peak visibility, it just like happened. And it was like the first moment where like internally, I just want to start yelling. I'm like, this took so much work. Like, holy shit, I'm done, kind of. But I was just stoked out of my mind. It was the first time I was like, this much effort is just worth it. Like, this is exactly what I wanted to do. I like had a plan. I had to be very technical because the speed of the comet. I got a bunch of layers together. I shot it over and over, blended the light, luminosity and different layers to the same scene. And then it happened. And I was like, wow, that was a check mark where it was like, some photos take a lot of work, and when people travel across the world, it's not just a little thing. So that was in kind of my backyard, so the respect of people trying hard is pretty high for me now.
Damn, you almost got arrested for
You know
the
what
shot.
happens? It's for the shot. I ran, I didn't want to say, but I ran away from the ranger and hid in the woods for a while. He found me. But yeah, I climbed back and I was like, no, I'm shooting this right now. I see the car leaving on the walkie-talkie. It happened, but I'm excited to hear Chad's. He's a wild shooter.
Dude, I'm glad that you took that you went first, because it was about 3/4 of the way through your story that I even thought of something to say. So, so I'll just tell a story. Well, I don't know if it's the hardest I've ever worked for a shot, but it's an entertaining story at least. So before COVID, like 2019, I decided to go move to Sri Lanka for a couple months and wanted to go to New Zealand and Australia on the way because that was the way tickets worked and I could do it. And I had a 15-hour layover in Oahu, and there was a specific hike called the Three Peaks that I really wanted to shoot, and I'd been wanting to shoot it for like years. And I had 15 hours. I think I arrived at maybe 5 p.m. one day and was leaving at like noon the next. So I was like, all right, I can shoot one sunrise. So I rented a car and got up at probably 3 or 4 a.m., complete dark. It was like a 4-mile hike. And so I wanted to get up there before it got light. And I get out there to the trail, realize that you can't park at the trailhead. You have to park 2 miles down the road. So went and parked 2 miles down the road, ran up the road, made it to the trailhead. And as soon as it went into the trees, it was just complete darkness. And all I had was my iPhone light. And I was just walking around with my iPhone light alone on this super dark trail. And all of a sudden I hear like snarling all around me. And I was just like, oh shit, like, what is this? And so I get the hell out of there. So I just like start running. I probably run like a mile or two of the trail, just like being like, I don't know what that was. Like I'm getting out.
Do you don't carry like a taser or like something to protect you
not
in
in
the
this case
wild?
here. I mean, this is Hawaii. Like, I mean, I'll just spoiler alert. Like, it was boars, so like it was kind of scary, but like Hawaiian boars aren't. I mean, like you're probably all right.
Yeah.
But I like ended up running in a mile or two, and like this trail is actually kind of sketchy. Like there's ropes, and you have to like kind of do some bouldering type stuff, and it was complete darkness, and so I ended up sticking my phone in my mouth and using the light with like this and trying to like maneuver my way up all the little climbs. And ended up getting there, ended up taking some cool photos, and like had a really nice moment by myself up in the mountains there. It was an incredible view. It was a great time. And on the way back, I was like working my way back and got to the point in the trail where I'd heard the animals, and like there were 5 boars like right in the trail, and they're like big size ones too. And I ended up like chucking a rock onto the trail to try to chase them away.
How
but
big are they?
I mean, maybe they're probably like 4 feet long. I don't know.
That will still be scary.
Like they're muscly little beasts. Like they can do some damage, and they got like tusks and stuff.
Well, there you go. You heard it here. You heard it here. That's what it takes to be a great photographer. Well, guys, I had a lot of fun. Thank you for sharing all your cool stories, your background, and just hear you guys' perspective is always very refreshing. And as well as you, Eric, thank you for jumping on and be part of the conversation. You'll see the reveal here pretty soon, and you just have to stay tuned on all the social medias to see the final episode. You can find me on Twitter as NFTGirl, and you can also find Jacob at Jacob_LR. You can find Chat as Chat Torkelson. That's lucky that you got your name like no underscore, no nothing.
The other Torkelsons weren't fast enough.
Yeah. And then you can find Eric at Defiance Works on Twitter as well. So thank you guys. It was so much fun speaking with you, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.